You know, there's something I need to tell you that took me 83 years to fully understand. If I had waited for others to be ready or willing to see the world with me, I would have missed the most extraordinary moments of my life. Solo travel wasn't just something I did. It saved me, transformed me, and showed me who I truly was when nobody else was watching. I still remember the morning I woke up in my empty house after Sarah passed away. The silence was deafening, 52 years of marriage, and suddenly I was completely alone. Our travel plans, our bucket list destinations, the adventures we had always postponed until someday, all of it seemed to evaporate into thin air. I found her travel journal in her nightstand drawer, filled with places we never got to see. Together, that was the moment I thought my traveling days were over. But I was wrong. So terribly wrong. My granddaughter Jennifer came to visit about 3 months after the funeral. She found me in the same chair I'd barely left, surrounded by the same four walls, drowning in memories that were slowly suffocating me. "Grandpa," she said, "Sarah wouldn't want this for you." She placed a single plane ticket on the coffee table. Rome, one way, departure into weeks. I was terrified. "I can't go alone," I told her. "I've never traveled without your grandmother. I wouldn't know what to do, where to stay. It's not safe at my age. People take advantage of old folks like me." All the excuses poured out. Jennifer just smiled and said something I'll never forget. "The most dangerous thing you can do right now is nothing." Those words hit me like a thunderbolt. She was right. The greatest risk wasn't out there in the world, it was right here in this chair, letting life slip away one empty day at a time. So I went, terrified, underprepared, and completely alone. I made 1,000 mistakes, got lost in Rome's winding streets, paid too much for a mediocre hotel, fell victim to a tourist restaurant scam, even had my pocket picked on the subway. But here's what else happened. I sat alone at a small cafe near the Pantheon, and the owner, Giuseppe was his name, noticed me studying my map with confusion. He came over, and despite the language barrier, we connected. He drew me a personal map of his favorite hidden spots. For the next 3 days, I explored Rome through the eyes of a local, discovering places no tour guide would ever show me. I met Eleanor, a widow from Australia, who was also traveling alone at 75. We spent an afternoon sharing stories of our late spouses, laughing and crying with a kind of freedom that only strangers can sometimes provide. Solo doesn't have to mean lonely, she told me. It just means you're brave enough to discover who you are when no one's watching. That first solo trip changed everything. Over the next decade, I visited 27 countries alone. Each one taught me something new, not just about the world, but about myself. I discovered strengths I never knew I had and faced fears I'd carried for decades. Now, I want to share with you what I've learned about traveling alone safely while actually enjoying every moment of it. Not just the practical tips though, God knows I learned those the hard way, but the deeper wisdom that comes from stepping out into the unknown when everyone tells you to stay safe at home. The first thing you need to understand is that preparation isn't just about packing the right things. It's about preparing your mind. Before I travel anywhere, I spend time learning about the culture, the customs, the simple phrases in the local language, not just for safety, but for connection. The look on someone's face when you attempt even a badly pronounced thank you in their language. It's worth every awkward syllable. I create what I call my lifeline document. It contains every reservation, every contact number, copies of my passport and insurance documents. Emergency contacts. I print 3 copies, one for my luggage, one for my day bag, and one that stays with my daughter back home. In a world of smartphones, this might seem old-fashioned, but phones die, get stolen, or lose service. Paper never loses its charge. Let me tell you about Taiwan, 2017. I was 78 years old, standing in the pouring rain in Taipei after my phone died. Couldn't remember my hotel's name or address, but I had my lifeline document in a waterproof pouch around my neck. That simple preparation saved me from what could have been a genuine crisis. Safety while traveling alone isn't about fear, it's about awareness. I'm not afraid to walk the streets of Bangkok or Barcelona, but I am always aware. I notice who's around me. I walk with purpose, even when I'm lost. I trust my instincts, that gut feeling that has been refined by decades of living. In Istanbul, I once felt someone following me through the Grand Bazaar. Instead of panicking, I calmly entered a busy shop and asked the shopkeeper if I could sit for a moment. I explained my concern in simple English. He not only let me stay, but had his son walk me back to my hotel later. The kindness of strangers is something you'll encounter far more often than danger. I've learned to dress like a local whenever possible. No flashy jewelry, no expensive watches. I keep a dummy wallet with a small amount of cash and expired cards, while my real valuables stay hidden in a money belt or secret pocket. It's not paranoia, it's just smart travel. Technology has been my greatest ally in solo travel. I was reluctant at first, thought I was too old to learn all these apps and gadgets. But my grandson Michael sat me down and showed me how to use navigation apps, translation tools, and safety features on my phone. I learned to use location sharing so my family always knows where I am. I discovered apps that work offline, saving maps and important information for when I don't have internet access. There was a night in Prague when I took a wrong turn coming back from a classical concert. The streets all looked the same in the dark, and for a moment, that old fear crept in. But I had downloaded the city map on my phone. With just a few taps, I found my way back. Technology doesn't replace common sense, but it certainly complements it. Accommodation choices matter tremendously when you're alone. I've stayed in everything from 5-star hotels to humble guest houses. The best places weren't always the most expensive. They were the ones where the staff knew my name, asked about my day, and genuinely cared about my well-being. In Kyoto, I stayed at a small family run-in where the owner, Mrs. Tanaka, noticed I hadn't gone out one morning. She gently knocked on my door to check if I was feeling well. When she learned I was just feeling a bit overwhelmed by the language barrier, she handwrote directions to her favorite garden in both English and Japanese and insisted her nephew accompany me there. That kind of personal connection is invaluable when you're traveling alone. I always choose accommodations in well-lit areas, close to public transportation. I read reviews carefully, looking specifically for comments from other solo travelers, especially seniors. And I always have my first night booked before I arrive in a new country. Nothing is more vulnerable than arriving exhausted in a strange place with nowhere to stay. Let me tell you about eating alone, because that's something many people dread. I used to be self-conscious, imagining everyone was staring at the old man dining by himself. I'd rush through meals just to escape that feeling. But over time, I discovered the joy of solitary dining. I bring a book, my journal, or sometimes just my thoughts. I sit at the bar or counter. When possible, it's easier to chat with staff or other solo diners. I've had some of the most fascinating conversations over meals this way. In a small trattoria in Sicily, the chef came out to ask why an American my age was traveling alone. That question led to him pulling up a chair, opening a bottle of his homemade limoncello, and sharing stories until well past midnight. Some of my richest travel memories come from these unplanned encounters that would never have happened if I'd been traveling with companions. When you're alone, you're more approachable. You're more likely to step outside your comfort zone. Transportation is another crucial aspect of solo travel. I always research how to get from the airport to my accommodation before I arrive. In unfamiliar cities, I opt for official taxis or pre-arranged transfers for that first journey, even if they cost more. Once I've got my bearings, I embrace public transportation. It's where real life happens. On a bus in Colombia, I watched a young mother struggling with her packages and child. I offered my seat, and that simple gesture led to her family inviting me to their Sunday dinner. 3 generations gathered around a table, making me feel like I belonged, if only for an afternoon. Souvenirs of solo travel. Now, let's talk about something people don't discuss enough: loneliness. Yes, it happens. There are moments when the solitude feels heavy, when you see couples sharing experiences, or families creating memories, and you feel that ache of missing your loved ones. I felt it acutely one Christmas Eve in Vienna. Snow was falling softly on the holiday markets. Couples walked arm in arm, and families gathered around tables laden with food and laughter. I stood alone, holding a cup of mulled wine that couldn't warm the chill of isolation I felt. But here's what I've learned. Loneliness is just a visitor, not a permanent resident of solo travel. I've developed strategies for those moments. I call home, not to complain, but to share my adventures. I join day tours or cooking classes where I can meet others temporarily. I strike up conversations with shopkeepers or museum guides. That Christmas Eve in Vienna, I finally gathered my courage and asked an elderly local couple if they could recommend where to hear good music that night. They not only pointed me to a small church concert, but insisted I join them. We couldn't speak each other's language fluently, but music needs no translation. That night became one of my most treasured memories. Health concerns are valid when traveling alone, especially as you age. I carry a card in the local language explaining my medical conditions and medications. I wear a medical alert bracelet. I research where the nearest hospitals are in each destination. And I never skimp on travel insurance. It's not just about financial protection. It's about peace of mind. In Greece, I developed a terrible ear infection while on a remote island. The local clinic had limited resources, but my travel insurance arranged for a speedboat to take me to a larger hospital on the mainland. What could have been a dangerous situation became merely an inconvenient delay. Managing money safely is another crucial aspect of solo travel. I divide my funds into different places, some in my money belt, some in my suitcase's hidden pocket, some in my day bag. I always carry at least 2 different credit cards, kept separately, and I inform my bank of my travel plans to prevent them from freezing my cards for suspicious activity. In Thailand, an ATM ate my primary card on the first day of my trip because I had backups and had prepared for this possibility. It was an annoyance rather than a disaster. I've seen fellow travelers reduced to tears by similar situations because they hadn't planned for contingencies. Solo travel has taught me to embrace spontaneity while maintaining a framework of safety. I always have a rough plan for each day, but I hold it loosely. Some of my most magnificent experiences came from deviations from the plan, from saying yes to unexpected invitations or opportunities. In Morocco, I met Frank, an American photographer in his 70s who'd been traveling alone for over a decade. He invited me to join him at sunrise to photograph the desert. Despite some hesitation, I barely knew this man, something told me to trust him. We drove out in his rented Jeep, and as the sun painted the dunes gold and pink, he taught me how to capture light and shadow. Solo travel, he told me, is about learning to trust your judgment about people, not about suspecting everyone. That lesson has served me well. I've developed what I call my trust barometer, an internal sense of when someone's invitation is genuine and when it might lead to trouble. It's not infallible, but it's remarkably accurate. We all have this instinct. We just need to quiet the noise of fear to hear it. Documentation is another aspect of solo travel that I take seriously, not just for safety but for memory. At my age, memories fade faster than I'd like to admit. I journal every evening, recording not just what I saw but how it made me feel. I take photos, not just of famous landmarks, but of small details: a weathered door, an elderly woman's smile, the pattern of light through a cathedral window. These records become precious as years pass. Sometimes I'll open my Morocco journal and suddenly smell the spices of the Medina again. Or I'll look at a photo from that sunrise in the desert and feel the cool sand beneath my feet. These sensory memories are the true wealth of travel. There's something profoundly empowering about navigating challenges alone. Each problem solved, each obstacle overcome, builds confidence that extends far beyond travel. After successfully negotiating a complicated train system in Japan despite the language barrier, everyday problems back home seem manageable by comparison. I remember standing at a train station in Tokyo, completely overwhelmed by the complex system and signs I couldn't read. An elderly Japanese woman noticed my confusion. Despite speaking no English, she figured out where I needed to go and personally led me to the correct platform. We communicated through gestures, smiles, and the universal language of kindness. When we reached my platform, she bowed and handed me a small origami crane she'd folded while we waited. I still have it, a reminder that the world is full of good people. The beauty of solo travel in your later years is that you no longer need to impress anyone. You can set your own pace. If I want to spend 3 hours in a single room of a museum, studying every brushstroke of a painting that moves me, I can. If I want to sit in a park all afternoon, watching children play and dogs chase balls, there's no one to hurry me along or complain of boredom. This freedom from others' expectations is profoundly liberating. In Paris, I spent an entire day following the path of the Seine, stopping whenever something caught my eye. No itinerary, no must-see list, just curiosity and whim as my guides. It was one of the most perfect days of my traveling life. Safety for senior solo travelers also means being honest about physical limitations. I'm not as steady on cobblestones as I once was. My knees protest long flights of stairs. I get tired more easily than I did even 5 years ago. Acknowledging these realities isn't admitting defeat, it's being wise. I now build rest days into my itineraries. I choose accommodations with elevators or ground floor rooms. I'm not too proud to use a walking stick on uneven terrain or to take a taxi. When distances are too great, these accommodations don't diminish my experiences, they enhance them by preventing exhaustion and injury. In Dubrovnik, I wanted to walk the famous city walls, but knew the steep steps would be challenging. Instead of pushing myself to the point of exhaustion or danger, I found a lovely cafe with a panoramic view of those same walls. While others rushed around the hot, crowded walkway, I sipped cold lemonade in the shade, sketching the scene and chatting with the Croatian family at the next table. Different experience, equally valuable. Connection with home is vital when traveling solo. I schedule regular check-ins with family, not just for safety, but for sharing. Video calls let me show my grandchildren the view from my window in Peru, or the street performers in Krakow. These connections remind me that I'm never truly alone, even when thousands of miles separate us. Michael set up a private blog for me where I post photos and brief stories. It's become a family tradition for everyone to gather on Sunday evenings to read my latest adventures together. Knowing they're experiencing these journeys vicariously adds another layer of joy to my travels. The question I'm asked most often is, aren't you afraid? The honest answer is yes, sometimes. Fear visits me in strange hotel rooms at 3 a.m. It whispers warnings when I'm lost in unfamiliar streets. It tightens my chest when I'm misunderstood or when plans fall apart. But here's what I've learned about fear. It's a terrible master, but an excellent consultant. I listen to it, consider its advice, then decide whether to heed it. Sometimes fear keeps me safe. It prevents me from walking down that dark alley or accepting that too good to be true offer. Other times, fear is simply resistance to the unknown. And those are the times to acknowledge it, thank it for its concern, and step forward anyway. On my 80th birthday, I went paragliding in Switzerland. As I stood at the edge of that mountain, harnessed to an instructor and ready to run off the cliff, fear screamed at me to back away. Every instinct for self-preservation urged retreat. But beneath that fear was a deeper knowing that I was safely prepared, that the instructor was experienced, that this was a calculated risk worth taking. The moment we soared into the air, fear transformed into exhilaration, floating above the Alps, seeing the world from a perspective I'd never imagined possible at my age. It was transcendent. It was transcendent. That's the secret. Some of life's most extraordinary moments wait just on the other side of fear. Solo travel has taught me to pack light, both literally and metaphorically. I no longer bring things just in case. If I truly need something, I can buy it locally. More importantly, I've learned to leave behind emotional baggage, expectations, prejudices, rigid thinking. These weigh far more than any overstuffed suitcase. In India, my carefully planned visit to the Taj Mahal was ruined by unexpected closures. I could have let disappointment color my entire stay, but instead, I asked my hotel manager what he would show a friend visiting his city. He directed me to a small, lesser-known tomb with exquisite marble work. There, without crowds, I had a more intimate experience with history and craftsmanship than might have been possible. At the famous landmark, the unexpected detours often become the highlights of any journey. The best stories rarely come from perfect execution of plans. They emerge from the canceled flight that leads to discovering a charming village where you were never meant to stop, from the rainstorm that drives you into a tiny cafe where you meet someone who changes your perspective forever. What I want you to understand most deeply is this. Traveling alone doesn't mean being alone. It means being open to the world in a way that invites connection. It means developing the confidence to navigate unfamiliar territory, both geographical and emotional. It means discovering parts of yourself that only emerge when there's no one else to lean on. After Sarah died, I thought I'd lost my capacity for joy. I believed adventure was behind me, that the remainder of my life would be a quiet epilogue to the story we'd written together. Solo travel showed me how wrong I was. It revealed that grief and joy can coexist, that endings can become beginnings if we're brave enough to turn the page. Last year, I returned to Rome, the city of my first solo journey. I visited that same cafe near the Pantheon. Giuseppe was gone, but his son now ran the place. When I told him the story of my first visit, tears filled his eyes. My father spoke of an American grandfather who came alone, he said. He told us that man inspired him with his courage. I had no idea that while I was being changed by my travels, I was changing others too. Each of us leaves ripples in the world as we move through it. Solo travel has taught me to create ripples worth leaving. So if you're hesitating, if you're waiting for the perfect companion or the perfect time, if you're letting fear convince you that adventure is for others, but not for you, please hear me. The world is waiting to meet you, not some sanitized tourist version of you, but the real you who emerges when you navigate challenges alone. Start small if you need to. A weekend in a nearby city, a guided tour where others handle the logistics, a cruise with organized excursions. Build your confidence incrementally, but start. The clock ticks for all of us, and I've never met anyone who regretted traveling, only those who regretted waiting too long to begin. Pack that suitcase, book that ticket, make that first solo journey, even if your knees shake and your heart races. I promise you this, the person who returns will not be the same one who left. They'll be braver, wiser, more compassionate, more alive. And isn't that, after all, the point of this journey we call life? Not merely to exist in safe harbors, but to sail boldly into unknown waters. Not just to accumulate years, but to fill those years with moments that take our breath away. At 83, what I know for certain is this: it's never too late to discover the world or yourself. The road stretches before you, full of possibility. All you need to do is take that first step, alone, yes, but never truly solitary. Because once you open yourself to the journey, you'll find you're connected to everything and everyone in ways you never imagined possible. Safe travels, my friend. The greatest adventure of your life is waiting, just beyond the boundaries of your fear.